Welcome to Days of Roar, a Detroit Tigers podcast brought to you by the Detroit Free Press. My name is Mark Borash. I'm here with Free Press beat writer Evan Petzold, who has gotten back from some rest and relaxation up in Houghton Lake and a lot of baseball. We're back here on a Monday night instead of a Sunday night because we needed to let Evan rest up an extra day. So Ev, how you doing? How you feeling? Where you been? What you been doing? And then we'll talk some baseball.
Yeah, I hope you can hear it in my voice. I'm pretty energized coming back. I mean, it was a fun weekend up at Houghton Lake. We did a combined bachelorette party where we got everybody together, and I mean, we had a total blast. I mean, everyone's looking forward to the big day. September 8th is when Savannah and I get married, and there's inside jokes now amongst the group, and just some different things like that's really enjoyable. So yeah, some golf, some tubing, a really nice boat day that we had where there was a lot of sun and, no rain, all shine. So that's exactly what I signed up for the weekend, and that's what we got. And so yeah, it was a good weekend. Missed out on some Tigers baseball, obviously. Shout out to Jenna Malinowski for stepping in and covering for me for a few days here as the Tigers have been continuing to play some pretty good baseball. It's kind of been impressive to watch. A 5-3 week since we last recorded, 7-4 since the All-Star break. Now, from a standings standpoint, it doesn't really help that, look, they're 7 games out of first place in the American League Central. The Minnesota Twins have gotten hot. I think I called that, around the All-Star break, that one of those two teams up top, Cleveland or Minnesota, was bound to get hot. And, Minnesota has done just that. They've won 8 of their last 10. They're on a 4-game winning streak. They're playing really good baseball right now. And the Tigers, as much as they've been playing well, like you can't keep up with a team like the Twins when they're playing that well, and also had a pretty significant lead on you going into the break where it was interesting, but the Tigers are still going to have to make a pretty significant push before the trade deadline. So that's kind of where we sit right now. But yeah, no, for me, like, I'm energized. I'm happy to be back. I'm ready to knock out this podcast and chat Tigers a little bit. We do have a lot to discuss.
We got a lot to discuss. We got a trade deadline coming up this week. Hopefully there's so much activity that we need to do an emergency trade deadline pod. And there are lots of shrewd, exciting things on the horizon. It was pretty interesting. Since we last spoke, Tigers have played 8 games. They won 5 of them. I think you and I were discussing before we began. In those 8 games, they gave up more than 10 runs 2 times. They gave up 2 runs or less 5 times. So 2 times over 10, 5 times 2 or less. Pretty, that's what I refer to as August and July and August baseball, because you're rolling by then. Everybody is what they are, and either you're hitting or you're not. So saw a lot of good pitching performances, some out of the blue. Saw one today that you didn't see. And I always try to tell Kirk that I will use my profanity liberally, but Tarik motherfucking Skubal today, baby. Woo, doggy. It looked like Randy Johnson today, man. That was just bullying somebody with their fastball, throwing strikes. After 6 pitches, I tweeted, well, looks like the command's pretty good today. And he just kept pounding edges, and it was an ugly, ugly thing to be a hitter facing Tarik Skubal today.
I need to go back and I need to rewatch, but I know this is, down on our show sheet a little bit, but let's just move this up before we even get into the big two. Like, how good can Tarik Skubal really be? Like, I think that's the big question everybody wants to know. And I do think that that's like an interesting talking point, because for me, I view him as like AL Cy Young. Like he can do that. Like he has the stuff to be that guy, but like, just how repeatable is it? Is that something that he could do, year in, year out? Are we seeing like the development of one of the next great pitchers coming back from an injury where his stuff is just this good? Everything seems so synced up. And I know he got hit hard in his last start, but it also was a situation where it was 2 great innings against the Royals. And then all of a sudden, I don't know if they figured something out. He said he wasn't tipping pitches against the Royals, but it seemed like he was just leaving way too much in the middle, and they were, doing damage on it, and they were aggressive and they were hunting. But then he flips it back around and does what he did against the Giants. And it's just like, okay, like, yeah, this is Tarik Skubal, and how repeatable can this be? And what's the ceiling?
Well, I mean, look, what he did today, I've seen before. I mean,
For sure.
I saw it for 6-7 weeks at the start of last season after the first 2 starts. I mean, it was start after start after start.
It was ridiculous.
I mean, did I think he threw harder today and the consistency of the command was better? Well, it's like saying last year was a 95 and today was a 98. I mean, a 95 is still going to dominate. So what ended up happening is between health and being what has happened historically to Tarik Skubal, he just struggles at some point in time to maintain command. And I think we have found out, regardless of how good the stuff is, if he doesn't have fastball command and pitches are in the middle of the plate, they clobber the shit out of him. Okay. So, and we've seen it many, many, many times. So the answer is Tarik Skubal, and I've heard AJ talk about this. When Tarik Skubal does not have precise command, he needs to miss off the plate, not in the middle of the plate. And he's never really showed a capacity to execute, his second or third or fourth best stuff.
Well, Mark, I'm encouraged by a couple things, though, right? I mean, you go back and look at his 4 starts since coming back from the injured list. 4 innings, no runs against Oakland. 4 innings, no runs against Toronto. 4 innings, 7 runs against Kansas City. And 5 innings, no runs against San Francisco. So you're looking at 3 outstanding starts, albeit short starts because he's coming back from an injury, and then 1 blow-up start. Like, I think that maybe is just more of an anomaly compared to the other 3. And maybe what we get from Tarik Skubal is the 4 and nowhere in runs. Now he's going to have to face, teams third time through an order, as we get along here. But I mean, look, today he was able to go 5 innings and, through 82 pitches. That's the most that he's thrown all season. Got his first win since, last year before the injury. And I don't know. I think that all signs are pointing in the right direction. I think that what happened in Kansas City, I think that that's kind of one of those, standoff type performances for him these days. I think he started to figure some things out that makes me believe that we're going to see more of the guy who went, 4 innings, no runs, 4 innings, no runs, and 5 innings, no runs. Wouldn't you think?
I think his mechanics are better. I think his release point's more consistent. I think the shape on his pitches is almost optimum now. And his pitch execution today was chef's kiss. I've seen some of this before, but I definitely think they've polished him up even more than he was at his peak last year. My question is, it's always been with Tarik Skubal, is how many times can you repeat it and how healthy can he stay? If he can stay healthy, I don't think there's any question he's got the stuff of a Cy Young Award winner. I mean, he's a pure number 1. And but can Tarik Skubal throw 160 innings? I mean, we don't know. We don't know that.
Right.
It's funny. Tom Reinsenweber, who is a writer in Erie, was asking some Skubal questions today. He put up a list of who's struck out more than 10 hitters pitching for Erie in history. Tarik Skubal was at the top of the list with Joel Zamaya. They'd each struck out 10 for Erie 6 times. But it was funny because Tom's really clever. He's a really good writer. But I tweeted back to him, there was a part of that he left out, which just shows everything about how great Tarik Skubal is. And that is Tarik Skubal struck out 10 guys 6 times in Erie. He only started 9 times. Okay. He had a 48% strikeout rate the times he pitched in Erie. He only threw 48 innings in Erie. I think he struck out 82 guys. It's one of the single most dominating stretches of starting pitching in the history of Double-A baseball. If you go back and look at it, it truly is. I mean, striking out 48% of the hitters as a starting pitcher in Double-A is just, you can't even put words to how dominating that is. But yes, Tarik Skubal was great today. It was exciting. It was a beautiful thing to watch. And, he just vanquished. I mean, San Francisco's not a great hitting team, but they had no chance up there today. So it was.
They looked like I thought they looked like they wanted to get in, get out, right?
I'm not sure they turned the bus off when they came into the park. It looked like they got dressed at the hotel and told the bus driver to leave the bus running. So it thank God somebody mailed the game in against us. I was mad that they were not further ahead because they were on the verge. They were a swing away from literally calling the mercy rule on them early. And they just, couldn't get one more big hit. Green, Torkelson, and Carpenter were table setting, and Javi's had a lot of good swings in the last week. He just looked dismal today, and they just couldn't get another swing from somebody else. So Zachy Short with the 2-run homer, thank God. I mean,
he needed
it bad. So, but yeah, it was a fun game today. I was glad to take advantage of somebody and get the hell out of there. Foley, 2 pitches at 100, I think 6 at 99. I don't know what exactly, how many energy drinks he had out there, but he hadn't thrown that hard ever. So it was a beautiful thing to see.
Energy, a lot of coffee. Got something going. But no, I got to go back and watch some of these games too, though. Like you mentioned, talking about Tarik's outing, I want to go back and really watch that pitch by pitch, just not being on, I'm checking in, I'm seeing what's happening, but to really go through and digest just how good he was. Because from the numbers that I looked at, obviously, what you're saying about it, I believe you. And from some of the clips that I saw too, and then the chances that I had to peek over at the TV while it was on, that's pretty impressive. And good for him too. I mean, he really needed that too. Yep. Going 5 innings, getting across the 80 pitch mark. It was good to see.
I think it tells you a lot about Tarik Skubal. Tarik Skubal's he's all business, man.
Right, he was pissed off after the KC loss. I mean, he was ready to come back in and take you down.
All business. So, by the way, you want to watch? It's on 12 o'clock tonight on BSD. So, all right. So, let's get a little more into it. Let's go to the big two. Question number 1. Who do you think's getting dealt this week, Al?
I think it's pretty easy to say and pretty safe to say both Eduardo Rodriguez and Michael Lorenzen are probably getting dealt. Michael Lorenzen, you got to say that's a for sure slam dunk. Sell him off. It's a 1-year deal. So he's going to be a free agent in the offseason. And if you really want him back, which honestly, maybe they do want him back. Maybe that would be a good person to go back and try to get back on a 2-year deal in the offseason if you believe in him and you believe in his stuff and you believe in his ability to stay healthy. That might be a good, candidate to go back after in the offseason. But I think in the meantime, you got to sell him off and you got to get what you can. And he's been really good. He's been really good. I put out a list, around the All-Star break and going into it. And that was after the rough outing that he had, in Colorado. And he really needed to bounce back off of that. And he did on the last day of the first half of the season. And I put him as kind of one of my guys that was trending down just because the recent performance that he had. I think it was over his last 6 starts, he had struggled a little bit. And man, he has really turned it on as of late. He has just been absolutely superb. 3.49 ERA in 17 starts. Doesn't have a ton of strikeouts, but doesn't need a ton of strikeouts because he gets a lot of ground balls when he mixes his pitches right, when he understands the game plan and executes the game plan. He's really good when he keeps it simple. That's kind of the way that he goes about it. If you can avoid the walks, especially walks in important moments that don't allow, further damage, right? That's the biggest problem is when it's the walk that then leads to the missed pitch over the middle and that gets clobbered and it's a 2-run shot or it's a, RBI double. Those are things that he needs to avoid. When he does that, he can be really good and he can limit runs. He's been excellent. And so he's a name that's been really hot for a lot of teams. I mean, look, every team needs pitching at this point. If you're contending and you want to make it, chances are you need a starting pitcher. And I think he provides a lot of value just because of the fact that he can be versatile enough to move into the bullpen. And obviously working as a starter right now, he's been able to pitch deep into games. He hit 100 pitches in one of his starts earlier in the year, but he's been able to hover around that 90 to 95 pitch mark for most of the season. And yeah, he's been on fire in his last 3 starts. Hasn't a lot of run, so he's got an 18 2/3 inning scoreless streak going over those 3 starts. you got to move him, right? I mean, there's no question about it. The big question is, what do you get for a guy like that?
It's a good question, but
and how do you package? And those are things that the Tigers are going to have to figure out, right? Eduardo Rodriguez kind of being the same way.
Look, the trade.
What do you get for him?
The trade deadline is an art. Trading is an art. I mean, it truly is. It's
Al Avila wasn't great at it.
Not great at it.
Some would say he was bad at it.
Well, I've used this joke many times about Al Avila's trading. Some things actually have marinated better for Al Avila than we originally thought. I mean, I think the Paredes Candelario. Parise Olsen, no doubt about it. Alex Lang.
Jamer Candelario.
And Isaac Paredes in the same deal.
Mm-hmm.
So, look, I make a lot of fun of Al, and he was god-ass terrible. But I've always said, general managers, I got the 40, 50, 60 theory. If you're right 40% of the time, you're terrible and you're getting fired. If you're right 50% of the time, you got a good chance of, probably winning or having some good years, probably some bad years, but you're going to be a mixed bag. If you're right 60% of the time, you're going to win a lot of titles and go to the playoffs a lot of time. And that means you're wrong 2 out of 5 times. So it's a fine line between being right 2 out of 5 and 3 out of 5, right? So, Al did some things, but, my joke about Al really is that, like they say in rounders, all right? If after 15 minutes of playing poker, you don't know who the mark is at the table, you're the mark. So, in the last few years, poor Al was the mark a lot. Teams were calling, trying to take his lunch money and date his daughter, and they well,
look, I mean, that's the thing is they're in a situation now where this is going to test Scott Harris, right? I mean, we're going to find some things out, both about the plan for the future and, also about, can he make a good deal? And some of those things you don't really know until, you look a little bit into the future, right? Like, again, perfect example of that, if you want to take a peek at it, is Reese Olson, right? Like Reese Olson, we didn't know until this year that was a really good trade on his part. We didn't really know if Reese Olson was going to be able to make it in the big leagues until he got to the big leagues and had a chance to make it, right? Now Al can put that on his resume. Hey, look, I got Reese Olson. But my point is, though, is Eduardo Rodriguez, like, how do you make that trade work? What are you able to get back? How are you able to develop those players? I mean, this is a guy that he is a legitimate, number 2, number 3 on a really good team. And I think he's somebody that you obviously got to trade. I think you got to get as much as you can for him.
Hey, look.
You have to.
Can you start Eduardo Rodriguez in a playoff game?
Yeah.
Hell yeah. You could start him in the first game if you needed to. He's
done it. He's been there. I mean, come on now.
Games, dude.
He's won a World Series. I know. So but the point is that he's just been so good this year. And the numbers, it's a 2.69 ERA, 18 walks, 88 strikeouts, and 83 2/3 innings. That's across 14 starts. He's been absolutely dominant. He came back from the ruptured pulley in his finger and just has been lights out since then. He had one little hiccup, but other than that, I mean, it's pinpoint command, just dotting pitches wherever he wants to. And this is a guy who has a lot of money that he can leave on the table and go become a free agent. And the way that he's pitching, that would be the wise decision to make.
Look.
Now, again, I've said this before and I've written it and we've talked about it, Mark. There's some risk involved in trading him. And there's always risk, right? We talk about, taking a risk, right? And trying to go out there and make something happen and do something good for the organization. But like, this is a guy who can opt out of his deal or he can opt in. And I think the big concern from other teams is, hey, well, look, here's the deal. What happens if he gets hurt? What if we acquire him and he gets hurt? Then we're stuck with him. If he doesn't get hurt, he's just going to opt out. So trying to figure out, okay, what do we really send back for Eduardo Rodriguez? That's going to be the biggest question mark. It's the opt-out that really could hold some things up. Also, the 10-team no-trade clause, that can make things interesting as well. But I really do think that the opt-out is going to have more of an impact on what the Tigers get back. It's not as easy as the Michael Lorenzen deal. Lorenzen's easy to trade. Jose Cisnero, easy to trade. Chasen Shreve, if anybody wants him, easy to trade. Eduardo Rodriguez is not as easy to trade. He's just not.
Well,
Tigers are going to value him more than maybe other teams might because of that opt-out.
I disagree. I think that what you have here is a guy that needs to stay healthy for 8 weeks. okay, which I feel pretty confident they're going to do.
Hope, right?
And they're going to provide medicals when he gets dealt. You're not trading without medicals.
No,
right.
Of course not.
I doubt he'll be that big of a deal or big of an issue about where he goes, because wherever he's going to somewhere really good. Okay. The question is, how good a deal?
He can waive that, of course.
The question is, how good a deal is Scott going to negotiate? That's what we need to understand. As far as what happens after, look, you've talked to Erod about this. I mean, you know what kind of human being he is. He seems like a hell of a good guy, really good teammate, good mentor. But at the same time,
very good mentor.
Look, as much money as you have, he's not leaving $50 million on the table. Okay. So he's opting out. So he can come back. And I'm sure the Tigers are eager and happy to have a discussion about a 4 or 5 year deal at $22 or $23 million a year, which is going to be probably pretty close to the market. So I'm sure they have no payroll, and he likes it here, and it makes for an unbelievable rotation going into next year. There's no doubt about it. They're going to have a discussion with the guy. So, let's get what they can. As far as how good he's been, dude, Clayton Kershaw, little shy on innings, not too many though. He's got 95 innings, but a little shy of qualifying. 2.55 ERA, number 1 in baseball. Blake Snell, one of my favorites, with his 4.9 walks per 9 walk rate, is number 2 at 2.67. Number 3 is Eduardo Rodriguez at 269 in 83 innings. So do I think a team's going to like him? Yeah, I think there'll be multiple teams eager to have that talk. My personal favorite, we'll see if they're willing to pony up. They've rarely, if ever, ponied up. And if there was ever a time for them to do it, this is the year. The Baltimore Orioles, now in first place ahead of Tampa Bay. A lot of 2006 Tiger vibes there. Just a deeper amount of young players in that system not playing for the Baltimore Orioles. It's ridiculous how many they have. They got a kid, I think.
There's a lot of options off that team. There's a lot of options, Mark.
A lot of options. I mean, if you ask me to name one, it's been named on Twitter a few times. I'm probably on board with it, but I would say if they're dealing from depth, Joey Ortiz, a left side infielder, can play short, can hit. He'd be at the top of my list. And I have said this to you.
Jordan Westburg.
Yeah, Jordan Westburg, I think they may want to keep now. He's been playing pretty well, plays second base, but he'd be another guy I'd be willing to have a discussion.
Showcase him, yeah.
Yeah, because Ortiz and Westburg, it's, 6 one, half dozen the other. They got, Henderson's going to go to third base. Holiday will be the shortstop within a year. It'll be pretty interesting to see what they do. I mean, look, Baltimore is just freaking loaded. They got Kowser, they got Hurstad, they got so much action over there. They don't know what to do with it all. They don't have enough places to play all their guys.
And they need some arms.
They need a starting pitcher that can start for them in the playoffs.
Yeah, they do.
Okay. So at the same time, I think it would be wise to try and add Jose Cisnero into an Erod deal just for the leverage of the deal. It improves the kind of return you're going to get. Jose has been, aside from 2 strangely terrible outings in the last 2 weeks, for the last 6 weeks, almost every other time besides those 2 times, he's been lights out. So,
and that's when he refined his pitch mix. I mean, he added some pitches to his arsenal, helped make himself better, and he's been pretty lights out for the most part.
Yeah. So, all right, we're going to talk a little bit more trade, but we're going to take a break for a minute. We'll be back. All right, so we got Lorenzen. We discussed that. Probably a lot of teams. Houston might be a good match for that. Milwaukee might be a good match for that.
There's so many teams. The Reds
could be.
Cincinnati going back there.
Yeah, and I think Mike would like probably going back there. The Reds have a lot of players there. I mean, a lot of people like to discuss Jonathan India. They're not getting Jonathan India for Michael Lorenzen. And as I tweeted earlier today, after I just try to let people, argue with each other. Look, Jonathan India, he's a decent major league player, but the last 800 at bats, he's a 0.8 WAR, and it is what it is. I mean, yes, he had a great rookie year, and yes, he's been pretty average, 98 WRC plus since then. So would I take him for Michael Lorenzen? Yeah, probably. But, I think your expectation. Look, smart GMs, here's what they do. They see players like Jonathan India as an example. And there's lots of players like this around baseball. But if the Dodgers are just phenomenal at this. They see players that maybe, not great, not terrible, but have some skills. And they do a dive and figure out how they can optimize them. They understand why they may be less than consistent or not quite as good as they were. They deal for them, maybe not pay a ton for them, and figure out how to make them a lot better. I mean, I could.
But my question for you, Mark, does Jonathan India, though, does he have more just raw talent, raw tools in the box where you can optimize him and he can become even better than just a serviceable player that you could? I mean, look,
yes.
What they did with Zach McKinstry, for example, was outstanding for the time that he was going good, right? And since then, he's fallen off pretty significantly. But for a guy like Jonathan India, if you feel like you can optimize him and there are those tools in the box, could he become something great for you?
I don't know about great. He could become very good, though. So,
and I think that's maybe where if there's a game plan to fix a guy like that, to me it makes sense, and I'd be all on board with it. But if there's no plan to fix him, or if it's just, hey, let's go out there and get him because the guy's hits 251 and is going to give us anywhere between 17 to 22 home runs, like. I don't know, maybe.
Yeah, well,
sure.
Yeah, and a guy that's already going to have 3 years of major league service time. I mean, there's a lot of things to that. That's exactly what I'm saying. Okay, we don't need any more 100 WRC plus major league average players. We don't need those guys. We need
You need guys that can go above and beyond for you.
We can find out if we have those guys in our own system with what they're messing around with. I mean, Zach McKinstry can almost probably be a 2-WAR player, maybe, for you. You already have him. Andy Ibanez. I mean, the combination of Andy Ibanez and Zach McKinstry together, you may get 2-WAR out of just platooning them until you can find something with more upside. So, just to get a guy because he had a name and had a good rookie year, that's just wasting people's time. It's wasting more time. And Detroit's been really, really good at wasting time. So, Let's shoot for more than that.
Well, that gets into question 2, right?
Well,
I mean, that gets into question 2.
No, I'm not. I want to ask a couple more questions about question 1. Do you think that what if somebody, look, both of our fondness for Jakey Rogers is well documented. People tried to, talk down how he's been playing this year. And I tweeted some things. I saw our buddy Scott Bentley tweeted a few things also, which, Jake Rogers he's 1.8 WAR on the year. He's going to be a 3-WAR player. That's ridiculously good for playing 100 games. I mean, his numbers since the 1st of June are just ridiculously good. He's a 131 WRC plus. He's hitting like close to 280. So
it was right when Riley Green went down. He just turned on the gas and he started raking.
I mean, people, if Jakey Rogers hits 250 with 50 homers, he's a 3+ WAR player. Are we really having a discussion about wanting to deal a guy like that? No, we want to acquire a guy like that. We don't want to deal one.
As good as he is defensively? I mean, come on now.
But here's my question. What if somebody comes to you and makes you an offer you can't refuse? What are you doing?
Well, if it's an offer you can't refuse, I mean, it better be a damn good offer. But I think it takes a lot to put. I mean, look, Jake Rogers is the type of catcher that the Tigers have needed for years and years and years. He is a guy that only comes around every once in a while. You don't just get catchers like this. I mean, look at how many catchers the Tigers have pushed through their system, over the last, I don't know, what has it been, 4 or 5 years, trying to get guys to work and just nothing really seems to stick. And you're waiting on the development for somebody. And finally, this guy develops and finally he's here and finally he's doing everything that you want a catcher to do. And you're going to trade him?
They haven't had any real catching to speak of since 2011. So
right, like that's my point though, is there just hasn't been anybody even that's been a staple, that's been a guy that you can say, yeah, that's our starting catcher. That's the guy that all our dudes love throwing to. He calls a hell of a game. He hits some jacks for you, and you know what? He can get hot for a stretch as well. They haven't had that in forever, and like they need that. So no, I wouldn't trade him unless it's got to be the greatest offer that I've ever seen in my life to trade Jake Rogers. I wouldn't do it.
How about Kerry Bonds Carpenter?
Now that's a player that I would say, hey, maybe, there's an opportunity for the Tigers to part ways with him. Like I think he's obviously he's a liability in the outfield. I don't think that's much of a secret. I mean, he's not great defensively, and sure, he has had, good plays that he's made, every now and again, but just kind of on a consistent basis. Like I don't think that he's somebody that you feel great about when the ball is hit to him in the outfield, especially with difficult plays that he has to make. But it's another left-handed left-handed hitter. They have a lot of left-handed hitters. They've also got some of them coming up in the system as well.
A lot of
and it's a guy that, I mean, look, like
he's a DH.
It's DH only.
I don't know if he's DH only, but he's going to play about 50 games in the outfield starting next year, probably. And probably.
But Mark, here's my question: he's got
DH.
No, I understand, but look, he's got 315 plate appearances. Almost to 320 now. Is Kerry Carpenter actually going to hit 261 with a ton of bombs? Like, is that who he is? I mean, again, like, are there metrics? Do the metrics tell you that, hey, maybe, he might not be this and he's going to fall off a cliff and it's going to be, I don't know, Brennan Bosch, right? Like, just to throw out a name.
I'll give you.
I mean, if that's what the metrics are telling you, then I think you trade him.
I'll give you a different name who I think he is. Ready? I think he's a good version of Marcus Timms. Marcus Timms for a couple years.
Yes, I think but there's better players out there.
In the famous words of Mark Gorash, when it comes to trades, depends on the offer. So it's kind of.
I mean, Marcus Timms only had 2 20-homer seasons. I think you move on. If that's what you really think he is, if you think that he is going to hit you, he'll have a couple 25-homer seasons. He's going to hit you maybe 240, 250. Like, I don't know. Do you feel like you can get more out of Justin Henry Malloy? Do you feel like you can get more out of Parker Meadows? Do the metrics tell you that you got right? And you don't know those things.
There are guys that we do not know what they are. Okay, you don't know what.
But that's a calculated risk. That's a calculated risk. To make that move and make that trade. But I think if the offer is good enough, you got to do it.
Look, here's what I'm praying, and then we can move on from the trade discussion. I'm praying Scott Harris puts on his best possum outfit, okay, and pretends like he's afraid and listens, sucks in the other guys who think he's afraid, seems nervous, but at the end of the day, he's the one that took their lunch money because they were eager to think that he wasn't ready for the fight. I hope he plays it up and plays afraid and plays rookie all you can, okay? And at the end of the day, he just needs to walk away from the table with a lot of good research and some good deals, okay? Because they will be trying to take advantage of the rookie. Take my word for it. It's the way it works in every form of business. You always want to take advantage of the new guy. You don't know what he has. Okay. So best of luck, Scott. You got a week to show what's up. Hopefully you come away with some good stuff. All right. I wanted to at least touch on this real quickly because it kind of integrates a little bit with the trade deadline. Keith Law, not a personal Gorash favorite. And just for the record, he does have me blocked on Twitter, on X.
I wonder why.
Yeah. I may have not agreed with him a few times since 2014. So he didn't like that, but he came out with an updated list using the recent draft. And how about 3 Detroit Tigers in the top 36?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's respectable. I mean, obviously, Max Clark is pretty much a slam dunk, especially when you consider that was a guy that, we've talked about it. Brian Sikowski from Perfect Game talked to us about it. That's a guy that obviously could have been first overall in a lot of different drafts, right? So like, he's a real talent. He's a real dude. I'm excited to see how he pans out. I think that was a no-brainer, obviously, to be on that list. I mean, the list that he put out was 60, top 60 prospects. And so for the Tigers to have 3 in the top 35 was good. Just clicking through it now, Max Clark at 24, Colt Keith at 33, and Jackson Jobe at 35. Colt Keith, no-brainer. I thought maybe he probably deserved to be a little bit higher on that list.
Could have been. He blathered. I think over
so.
him. He had some great things to say about Colt Keith.
Okay, well, I think he's probably top 25 for me. But again, I don't know as much as Keith Law does about minor league baseball and prospects. So I'll take him at his word at 33. I think that's fine. I mean, it is what it is. And then Jackson Jobe, tossed him in there. I'm kind of surprised to see him that high, but he has bounced back pretty nicely from his injury, and he's pitched very well. The command has been significantly better when he was pitching with Low A Lakeland. He's now moved up to High A West Michigan, where he finished last season. So he's going to be back with the Whitecaps, and command looks good. Like I
played up pretty big.
His stuff has been good. I mean, the slider is better. The fastball is better.
Up to 99.
He's given guys different looks now, and it's just it's not as one-dimensional or maybe two-dimensional where you can eliminate the slider and then just try to hit off the fastball. Like, he's somebody that's going to give you different looks now, and I think that's a significant step forward for Jackson Jobe. So do I think that they're worthy of being those 3 guys in the top 35? Sure. Would I have positioned them in a different order? Maybe. I probably would have gone. I probably would have gone Colt Keith, then Max Clark, then Jackson Jobe if I was, organizing that list myself. But again, Keith Law is Keith Law. He does it for a living. So it's good to see, though. It's good to see.
It's good to see some higher end talent. It's good to see them ranked well. And
it doesn't really mean anything, but it makes you feel good.
It's nice to know they have a few things that are on the horizon of high ceiling, big contributing players. I'll be interested to see how Jobe does. He's got 6 or 7 starts left in the year, and I feel very, very confident that the Tigers will try to throw him in the Arizona Fall League against some better competition, at least get him 2-3 starts there and see how he does, kind of posture him for next year. So that's something we'll keep an eye on, and just wanted to mention it because a lot of times, people, we malign their system quite a bit, and, in honesty, it's been pretty good. I mean, I actually dropped a little piece in there that right now the, top 3 starting pitchers at Erie are throwing better than they have collectively at any time this year. Although I saw Wilmer Flores went on the DL today. But, you could argue that the second best starting pitching prospect for the Tigers, and we said this last week, is Kiter Montero. And Ty Madden has thrown really well his last 4 outings. It's really hard to get a gauge about how well guys throw when you limit them to, 90 pitches. But, a little bit better. All right. I wanted to at least touch on something, talking about the trade deadline. We're talking about how good the Tigers are. I wanted to look ahead to 2024 and ask you, what do they really got for the lineup for 2024? Who's something you're building around? Who's taking up space? So I wanted to kind of walk through.
Don't steal my notes this time.
I'm not stealing your notes.
I'm messing with you. No, I typed it out before we jumped on. I mean, no, it is. There are some question marks, of course. But I do think there are some pieces that you feel pretty good about, right? I mean, like I think you feel good about Jake Rogers as your catcher. I think you feel good about Spencer Torkelson as your first baseman. I don't know if you feel good about it, but you might be stuck with it. I mean, you are stuck with it. Javier Baez is your shortstop. That's going to happen. That's going to be a thing.
Can't be as bad next year as there's no way he's playing as poorly next year as he did. At least
I know we said that, but we said that after last season, Mark. We said that after last season. At least I did. I know I did. I said there's no way he can be any worse.
I just don't.
Offensively speaking,
yeah, I agree.
I mean,
all right. So he's your shortstop.
He's your shortstop. Okay. I think in the outfield you got Riley Green, Parker Meadows, Justin Henry Malloy, Matt Vierling. Who's that fourth outfielder? I'm not really sure. Do they acquire somebody else and maybe use one of those guys as a trade piece? Like, no idea yet. But I think that's kind of. I think that seems to me pretty set in stone as at least your outfield mix. You can throw. I mean, that's how I view it.
So Colt Keith is either playing second or third.
That's
right?
what I've got him as. Yeah, is a question mark. Where does he play? I don't know. Do they like him more at third? Do they like him more at second? Do they bounce him back and forth? Maybe they do just that.
So here's the bottom line of what I'm asking you for real. Okay, you need either a second baseman. You need a second baseman or a third baseman, right?
Mm-hmm.
You probably need, to be blunt about it, both a left fielder and a right fielder, because look, Mark, I marked Malloy defense. Like, I don't think that's a thing. Like, I could see him and Kerry Carpenter DHing most of the time, if not all the time, those two. So you're right. You do need a quarter outfielder, at least one. People like Matt Vierling a lot. He's done a few things here. He's got 26 RBIs. It's going to be August 1st. He's hit 5 home runs. He's hit 7 homers, but he hit 2 of those in one game. So he's got a 133 ISO. It's nice. He's a good 4th or 5th outfielder. He ain't taking you anywhere, and he ain't getting any younger. So you need a starting right fielder and left fielder, or you're going to have to piece together a position, in a platoon, but you do need a much bigger, more potent player in one of your outfield corners than they have. And if you want a platoon in the other one, I guess I get it. But the bottom line is they need to add 2 players, maybe 3 of substance. And whether they start adding people that can fill in those particular spots at this trade deadline, or they're going to do it in the off season, but they need to start thinking about what's up, because the one thing I'm really not super worried about is pitching. They seem to be able to, regardless of injury, piece together pretty competitive pitching. You got Mize coming back on top of it. So.
And look, too, I mean, that's what Scott Harris did in Chicago, right? Like, he was very influential in pitching development, from what I've been told. Also, obviously, with the Giants, they were able to get guys on, those short-term deals and turn them into something. What he did with Michael Lorenzen to go pick him up, like, he clearly can identify pitching talent. And then, obviously, when you power together, Ryan Garco, Gabe Rebus, those 2 guys, in player development, you combine them with Robin Lund and Chris Fetter and Juan Nieves. Like, you get the 3 of those guys up at the big league level. That's the pitching department up there. All those guys are working together. They are so synced up at this point. I mean, it didn't really take long. They just had to get the right voices in there together. And hopefully that's where, the hitting department is going to be able to take that step forward this year. But the pitching department is so in sync. It's so in tuned. I have no worries. And especially with Scott Harris knowing how to go out there and get the right pitchers and understanding the data, and to be able to really sink his teeth into it and evaluate, hey, this is what we want, and this is where we want to take this guy. He's been able to do that. I have no worries about the Tigers either, putting together a pitching staff, finding pitchers in free agency, acquiring pitchers. Like, that's not as much of a concern. It's just, how are you going to fill out this offense? And they went for, young, controllable players in the offseason when they acquired Matt Vierling, Nick Maton, and Justin Henry Malloy, and Donnie Sands too. And they acquired both of those guys for Gregory Soto and your good friend Joe Jimenez. So you package those 2 guys together, you end up, getting those 4 young, controllable offensive players. I think you just need more of that. You just need to keep stacking those young position players who are under team control. Just keep stacking them and keep pushing them into the system. And one way or another, you're going to have guys that are going to come out and someone's going to do something for you, right? It's kind of almost one of those things where it's bound to happen. And if you hit on it more often than not, then you're the Baltimore Orioles and you're loaded. And then when you need to make a move, you can make a move and, you can dump from excess. So I think that's got to be the strategy moving forward. There are some pieces that they need, but I think they have a chance at this trade deadline to figure out how to fill some of those right now.
Well, I think that has to be the beginning. Okay.
It's going to take time, no doubt.
Right. Because to be really blunt about it, it's a pretty crummy free agent class coming up. So, I mean, you got Matt Chapman, but there's not a ton of hitters. and we'll have to see how they navigate that. More likely or not, you're going to have to take on a contract somebody wants to dump. It'll be something along those lines. But if you want to get hitters, they better start looking around now. And they have some work to do.
Well, and people that I've talked to, Mark, they've said that Scott Harris is creative and he's going to think outside the box. Let's see it.
This would be a good time to do that. All right, we're going to take our last break. When we come back, we got some fun stuff. Shohei Ohtani coming to town. We'll be back. Exciting baseball activity going to happen down at Comerica the next few nights. Arguably the greatest baseball player in history is coming to town. Evan Petzold will be there. Mark Gorash might even sneak down there to take a look at him. Also, Shohei Ohtani is coming to town. So, Mr. Ohtani, he's not going to pitch, but he is going to hit. And so far this season, he's done a lot of hitting. So he has 36 home runs, 77 RBIs, and he's hitting .302 with a .398 OBP and a .674 slug. And he's got a 184 WRC plus. Yeah, Shohei Ohtani can hit. So I'm excited to see what he can do. He's a 5-WAR hitter. It's just ridiculous. So are you excited to see him or not?
He's ridiculous. I mean, it's always a treat. I mean, it's awesome to watch somebody like that. I mean, I even think, I think about some of the all-time greats and, players that, my grandpa's told me about, players that my dad has told me about, players that I've learned about, whether it's, reading books or just kind of watching highlights, like whatever it is. I mean, there's been a lot of great players, but there's been nobody that's been able to do what Shohei Ohtani is doing. Like, there has been nobody that's been able to do it at this level. I mean, this is a guy who is an ace on the mound and also is going to hit you. He's hitting you 36 home runs right now. Like, that's ridiculous. Like, that's unheard of. I mean, go look at the OPS. Like, it's a career high OPS for him in a year where, he also has a 3.71 ERA and he has 148 strikeouts and like 111 innings. I mean, that's unheard of. That's ridiculous. It's stupid. But man, is it a treat. It is such a treat to get to see him play.
Truly unique. I'd argue the greatest, most talented baseball player of all time.
Me too. I mean, I don't think there's any question.
I do not say that lightly. So,
like no one's ever done what he's doing.
I mean, look, Babe Ruth was ridiculous, and the numbers he put up were so far beyond the numbers that anyone else put up. It makes it hard to ignore it. But at the same time, come on. I mean, Shohei Ohtani is facing guys that are throwing 96 to 100 from the sixth inning on every day. And that's not including some of the greatest starting pitchers in the world throwing. That's what he faces all the time. And then he goes on the mound and throws 100. So, I mean, come on. I mean, it's like fantasy stuff. Nobody should be this talented, and it's exciting that he's coming to town. I would encourage anyone that loves baseball. It's well worth going down there if you're going to spend some money. He'd be the first person I'd pay to go see. So excited to have him. To be interested to see how the Tigers do. I think I tweeted out, Tigers are 22-27 at home. Just flat out not getting it done. Somehow won the last 2 games. Have won 3 in a row since May 3rd. Going tomorrow night. The pitching's been pretty good lately. If they can get some hitting, they're usually, a pretty solid baseball team. It's just you never know what kind of hitting you're going to get from the Detroit Tigers. So it's exciting to know that Ohtani's coming to town. I also wanted to talk to you about a few things, maybe not so much, baseball. So you're getting married on, you told me September 8th, right?
Yes,
September
sir.
6th or 8th?
No, September 8th.
Yeah. So
I think 46 days as we sit here right now, about to be 45 days.
Yep. And so you told me you're not taking a honeymoon till the off season, right?
Not until maybe even after the off season. We want to go to Greece, so we're going to go prime time. So whenever that prime, I think it's like May, is kind of like a good time to go to Greece, according to the fiance / soon to be wife. So maybe I'll be jumping out of next season for a little bit too at some point. But we want to make that happen. And we also, if we're gonna go when the time is right.
Maybe
to make sure we can get the most out of it.
Going to make another, listen, I'm sure that the Free Press intern who got to, what was the young lady's name who got to cover the last few days?
Yeah, so that was Jenna Malinowski.
She did a very good job. I read her stuff, and I'm sure it was a thrill of a lifetime for her to be the beat writer for a few days.
Absolutely crushed it. It was great to have her shadow me earlier in the year, and kind of knew that I was going to need this time off and that she was going to come in and step in. So got a chance to shadow earlier on, and absolutely crushed it. So shout out to you, Jenna. Thank you.
You remember the first time that as an intern, when you had come to the Free Press, when you got to cover your first couple games?
Yeah, I mean, it was weird how it worked out, though, just because it was the 2020 season and it was, the pandemic year, and I was an intern, and then kind of all of a sudden it was just like, hey, the season's about to start. We obviously reshuffled some things with staffing, and we need a Tigers beat writer this year. Can you cover the Tigers? And I was like, all right, yeah, sure. Like, I remember getting the phone call. To this day, I was sitting on the couch. I was actually at Savannah's parents' place, and they were having a pool day, and we were just kind of hanging out outside. And I had stepped in. I had done some help, during the summer camp is what they had called it in July, when they were preparing for the season to start. Obviously, everything was all messed up because of COVID, but like, we were kind of all there. It was just us with her family. And I get this phone call, and it's like, hey, we need a Tigers beat writer this year. Can you do it? And I was like, yeah, I can do it. Like, of course, like, let's go. And so got that opportunity, and like, that was really cool. And so, yeah, to get to cover like my first few games, especially like sitting in the Comerica Park press box for the first time, like, that was something that as a kid, you go to Comerica Park, you look up there, and that's something that maybe you want to do, with your life. And that's kind of a dream of yours. And then it slowly, you read more, you learn more about the team, you kind of start to fall in love with the fan base and the city and just the people. And you just keep looking up at that press box, and that's where you want to be. And then to finally be there, like, yeah, that was really cool, man. It was really special. Like, I have a huge smile on my face right now. So yeah, I'm happy for her that she got to do it. I was super pumped when I was able to do it. And, hopefully next year, someone else is going to get a good chance to do it too, and have a good time with it. And then, yeah, I'll never forget it. I'll never forget it.
Yeah. It's something
not to make you tear up,
would forget, man. Yeah, well, I mean, it's an exciting thing to do, man. It's an exciting thing to be able to cover Major League Baseball, and the first time you do it, it had to be like a pinch me moment for sure. So after the Tigers play the Angels, they're going to Miami, which is a place near and dear to Mark Gorash's heart, and I want to make sure, even though it's going to be a pretty long ride from where the ballpark is, that if you can sneak down for dinner on Saturday night to Joe's Stone Crab, I would highly recommend you go there. I got to see if it's even open. It might not even be in season right now. I got to check on that for you. It's Mark Gorash's favorite out of town restaurant. So I haven't told you that.
No, they're open. They're open. Yeah, I looked it up. I'm looking at it right now.
I got to make sure crabs are in season. I got to make a few phone calls for you, dude. It is a unique experience. You've never been to a restaurant that big or a restaurant that good. So, pretty awesome place to go eat down in South Beach, right on the ocean. Great place to go. All right, last thing, because we don't humanize ourselves enough on this pod. And, you're traveling around, you got to amuse yourself at least a little bit. Is there anything you're binging on TV or streaming, or anything you watch, or you're just too busy, you don't watch anything?
No, I mean, I'm a pretty boring person across the board. Like, I don't really go out and do things when I'm in cities. Like, it's really hard to go sightsee sometimes. And I try to when I can to go out and see stuff, but it's not always that easy. And it's also like, it still feels like work, so it's not always like, oh, let's just go, get up early and go take a walk to go check this out. Like, I've been doing the golf thing and taking my clubs on the road sometimes if I can, but I have recently been reading a ton. So I've been reading a lot of Stephen King books. I did The Shining, and then I did Dr. Sleeps. Those two books kind of go hand in hand, obviously separated, by dates, like significantly, separated in time. But obviously The Shining came out way back when, Dr. Sleep a little bit more recently. So I was able to read those back to back. And then I also read a couple other of the Stephen King books. I'm looking at them right now. The Institute was another one that I really liked. And right now I'm reading It, which is a really big book. And there's, obviously a lot of pages to dig through. So I like to read while I'm on planes, and then kind of maybe sometimes early in the morning. And then also watching a new Netflix show that I just found out about that I didn't really know existed, called Suits. It's amazing. And I love it so much. It has Patrick J. Adams. He's the star of the show. It's basically, there's this guy who's a lawyer who never went to Harvard, but says he went to Harvard, and now he works at this firm, and it's kind of cool to see how it all kind of unfolds. Oh yeah, you've seen it?
Dude, I've seen every episode. It's an all-timer.
It's really good. It's really good.
It's phenomenal. There's 100+ episodes to watch. So
and I also didn't realize that the girl Rachel Zane in the show is Meghan Markle. I didn't realize that at first. Like I was like, it looked really familiar. I'm like, who is that? And then I Googled it and I was like, oh shoot, that's Meghan Markle.
Did the future Savannah Petzold have to clue you in on that one or what?
No, I just kind of did my own digging on it. Her face looked familiar, and I was like, I don't know where I've seen this face before, but I've seen this face like a million times. Just can't put the name to it. So yeah, sorry, I'm not really a big I'm not big on the British royal family, or really I'm like super big on pop culture. But
the first 5 years of Suits is amazing. The whole 9 years was great, but the first 5 are just tour de force. So
I'm really enjoying it.
All right, before we get out of here, the old man Mark Gorash is watching. Just binged Ted Lasso. Waited till it was all done.
Jake Rogers will be proud of you.
Was beautiful. Was great. Loved it. Was as good as everybody said. Also, if you, I've turned a few people onto this on Apple. There's a Jason Segel, Brett Goldstein, who did a lot of writing for Ted Lasso, wrote a 1-season product that's on Apple called Shrinking with Jason Segel from How I Met Your Mother, it captures them perfectly. Anybody that I've turned on to it will tell you it is funny. It's a 10. I highly, highly, highly recommend it. I also binged The Bear, and if you do not watch, I would recommend it to anyone. I think that's after Better Call Saul in the last couple years. The Bear, especially season 2, best thing written for TV. It's just amazing. It's so good, especially year 2. Year 1 was amazing, but year 2, it's hard to believe year 2 is better than year 1. Those are the 3 things that Mark Gorash has watched lately, besides 3 or 4 episodes of Blue Bloods every day, and a walk. So, all right, Ev, it's going to be an eventful week. You're going to be back in the grind starting tomorrow. I'm sure everybody will be happy to see you and play the Angels, see if we can have some fun, see if we can reshuffle the fortunes and get some new players. That's going to be it for this week. I want to remind everybody to, rate and subscribe, and please comment to our executive producer, Kirk Crawford, and our other executive producer, Anjanette Delgado, our savior, our producer, Robin Chan. Thank you for taking good care of us. To my grandson, Braden Michael Gorash, who has mastered the word no in the last few weeks, and he has truly mastered it. Love you. This is Mark Gorash, Robin Petzold, saying peace.